Okay guys, this will be part 2 of note editing, updating, and we left off at this template right here. What I want to do is go to the event and we're going to pre-fill the forms with data. So let's say we could actually copy this whole line of code here. Now let's make a note here to say the output is the template and we only want to pre-fill the data after the template's in the DOM, otherwise it won't work. So display data after the DOM is created. Let's call it the template. Okay, so we have the container, and what I want to do is .find and .title. Okay, and we're going to change the value of that. I'm going to duplicate this line, Control Shift down, and I'll call this one content. So we're going to need the content, so let's take a look at what our class names were. When I go to the note, we have a note title with an ID, we have a note content with an ID. Easy enough. So I'll say var title equals, and get rid of the obj. So note underscore title underscore note ID dot HTML, and I'll duplicate this one, call it content, and replace this with content. And then we can pass our variables in here, and I'm going to go ahead and test that out. Make sure you look at your code carefully with underscores and everything, because it's very sensitive. Don't forget your pound signs. I'll go ahead and refresh, and let's see, edit, and that fills that up nicely. Cancel, edit, cool. So what we want to do also, and not forget, is when I update this description, we want to update the hidden DOM element. So let's go to where they do the note, update note, and remember how we changed the HTML here? We also want to do that for the content. So I'll just duplicate the line and say content, content, and what that'll do is if I refresh the page, I say edit, jargon 2, fish fries 2, save, and I hit cancel, edit, whoops, edit, it has the 2 after it, so it's up to date. Okay, so next let's make it so when they click this button it shows the contents, and let's see what that's called right here, the ID of the note, and then we have the note title. Let's give it a class. I'll call it note toggle. Okay. And we'll go to event.js, and where do we list these? In the main initiation, I believe. So let's make sure we have this in the right order. If I go to my dashboard, we go load note, we have template and event above it, so we could use the on handler or the live handler. So I'll close this out. Too many files open makes someone go crazy. And we'll just make a method. So we're going to make a method. We'll just say toggle note. Okay. And I'll just go to the bottom and var toggle note equals function, and remember it was called note toggle, so dot note toggle. We're actually going to want to do the body on click because it's dynamically loaded. Dot on click function. Oops, got a little bit messy here. Forgot my parameter right here. Okay, so body on click note toggle. What happens? Well, let's first add an E here and do e.prevent default. Also, this has to be like that. And there. Okay, so note toggle is here, and when this is clicked, I want to show the note content. Let's give this a class of note content. Oops, it has a class over to the right already. Let me put this over to the left. Okay, so that has a class of hide. I'll just call this note content, and I'm going to look in my file to see if I'm using this anywhere else. Just these two places. Make sure my class isn't being used, and I'll say whoops, this dot find note content dot remove class hide, and let's make sure that works. Click. It does not behave. I don't know if it's finding it. So this dot find note content. Oops, let's do next. Refresh and click, and it doesn't want to work. In fact, it'll actually be a lot easier if I just add in a data attribute. So let's say note toggle. We'll just get rid of this note content again, and up here we'll say data ID equals object.note ID. So when the note toggle is clicked, we'll get the data attribute of ID, which will have the note ID. So this dot data ID var note ID equals this data ID. And then instead of selecting it this way, we will say we'll select this by the ID. So I'll say note content. Don't forget my pound sign for a class. Note ID dot remove class hide. Let's check out what happens. Refresh, click, and there it is, there it is, there it is. Whoops, I'm clicking edit for those ones. Click, and that shows the description box. So what I want to do is, if it has the class, hide it, otherwise toggle it. So let's just do toggle class hide. Refresh, jargon, jargon, hey, hey. So now that toggles those classes. At this point we can give it a full run. Let's refresh, and I'll edit just this empty one and say dog, save, and it shows dog there. It shows ASDF under the form. I'll edit this one. I'll say pig, and this is a note. I'll just copy and paste that a few times and save it. Okay. Now, if it's successful, it might be wise to also hide the form. So let me hit cancel, make sure all that's there. Okay. So how about once they save it, we also hide the form? Under event. So if it's a success, under update note, and then the form is the note edit form, and what I'll say is var form equals this, and I'll say form dot remove, and we'll go ahead and refresh, edit, save, edit, save. Okay, error saving. What happened? That error happened because there were no updates. So one thing we want to do is, because remember our CRUD model returns the number of affected rows, nothing's being affected when we just save the same old data. So in this instance, I think I'll just open up the API class, and make it successful no matter what, because it's unlikely we'll have an error. Update note, and I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to put a comment here. Do not check the result, because if no affected rows happen, they will think it's an error. Okay, so let's try that again. Refresh, edit, save. That should be always returning a success. Oh gosh, there we go. And refresh, edit, save. Okay, cool. I think that will do it for this for now.